covering the chapter Chemical Bonding and Molecular Structure. Briefly, let me run you through to access the revision notes and test in Clay6 website. If you go to clay6.com and click on practice, and since we are dealing here with NEET Premium, click on NEET Premium, and NEET Premium has 4 test series, that is for each subject: physics, chemistry, biology, and a NEET full test papers. Under each subject you will be having, the test will be arranged in chapter wise, and if you go to chemistry, we have chapter wise test here, and each green bubble indicates that this test is already taken, blue we need to, and red is a random wise chapter or random wise test. And you can take these tests n number of times. Let us start the session today. First half an hour we'll be discussing on the concept, that is our revision note will be helpful for you to go through the concept. And here it is, if you click on revision notes, it opens in a new tab. So let us start the session with chemical bonding and molecular structure. The very first thing if we start chemical bonding and molecular structure, the first thing which comes in our mind is what is octet rule. So this is a rule where atoms combine either by sharing electrons or by transfer of electrons in order to complete the octet. That means octet means here it is your 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Why we say it as an octet? Because it will say that it is considered to be a stable electronic configuration. It is considered to be the stable electronic configuration, and it should have 8 electrons in its outermost shell. We say nucleus in the center and electrons are revolving around the nucleus, right? And when we say this outermost shell, it should have 8 electrons in its outermost shell in order to satisfy the condition, that is your octet rule. So how it is possible that when we do an electronic configuration of one element, it will have 8 electrons in the outermost shell? It is highly impossible. But if this criteria has to get satisfied, here we say either by sharing electrons, it is possible that an element is comfortable enough of getting 8 electrons in its outermost shell, or another criteria says either by donating or accepting electrons. Donating or accepting electrons. So when we say sharing, here by sharing electrons, the element should be capable enough of attaining 8 electrons in its outermost shell, and then we say that that particular group has satisfied the octet rule. If I say second criteria can be either it should have the tendency of donating electrons or accepting electrons in order to satisfy your octet rule. And when we say octet rule is satisfied, so immediately if octet rule is being satisfied, that means what should have happened? Either it should have taken electrons from another element, or it should have donated electrons, or it would have shared electrons. So when sharing of electron has taken place, or donating or accepting, it would form a chemical bond. That is very important. It would form a chemical bond. So the attractive force that is going to hold together the constituent particles in your chemical species, we say that it is forming a bond. Because when it is sharing electron, or it is donating electron, or it is accepting electron, some form of bond exists between the two element which is taking part in order to satisfy the octet rule, and hence a bond is being generated. And then bond can be of different types. You would have heard that it can be a covalent bond or it can be a ionic bond. So covalent bonding, as I am telling you, it should be the sharing of electrons. So before, for example, if I say your as NaCl, or you can say H2, or you could say O2, NaCl, Mg. So when it is forming such combination, it should be in such a way that both of them are interdependent on each other. If I say NaCl, NaCl has the tendency of donating electron. That is, we all know it has 11 electrons in, total number of electrons is 11. So, and chlorine, when you do an electronic configuration, it should be 2, 8, 1. And when we say chlorine, it is 17. That means 2, 8, 7. So here, when we say NaCl, it is forming a group, means we say that sodium has the tendency of donating one electron and chlorine has the tendency of accepting an electron. Hence, if it donates one electron, this will become the outermost shell, and if it is chlorine, if it is accepting one electron, the outermost shell will have 8 electrons. So we could conclude that sodium and chlorine, sodium donates one electron in order to become stable, and chlorine accepts an electron to attain the octet rule or to become stable. So this arises because of the attaining octet rule, and there we say that bonding exists. But there are certain criteria where, or elements which they will not be able to donate electrons, and neither they will be able to accept electrons. In that scenario, we say that covalent bonding exists. So covalent bonding is basically where none of the element taking part in the chemical bond is donating or accepting. They are completely sharing the electrons, and this you could be studying sharing of electron concepts, or your covalent bonding is very important, because based on that we study the chapter hydrocarbon. And if we go to the marking or percentage of this chapter, it is 5%. It holds 5% in your exam. And based on same thing, it comes as your chemical bond or covalent bonding is a type, and the second one is your ionic bond, or you can say, here we say that electrostatic force of attraction that is going to hold the oppositely charged ions together, As I told you, Na is positive, your Cl minus is negative. So here we are having an opposite charge, and they are having an interaction among each other in order to form a chemical bond, or that is nothing but your ionic bond. And next we have to know is what is formal charge. What is formal charge? Formal charge is nothing but it is the difference between your number of valence electron in your isolated atom and your number of electrons which is being assigned to that atom in your Lewis structure. So there may be a question, they may ask you to calculate the formal charge. If you refer into the revision notes, we have provided the formula for the formal charge, that is nothing but your total number of valence electron in your free atom minus the total number of lone pairs of electron minus the half of your total number of shared, or you could say that as your bonding electrons. So we say that formal charge is nothing but the difference between the number of valence electron in your isolated atom and or free atom, and number of electrons which we are going to assign to that atom in your Lewis structure. That is important. And next concept says is your coordinate covalent bond. This bond you will come across very rare, because in this both the electrons in your shared pair will come from one atom. Both the electrons in the shared pair will come from one atom. That is a given, or a term is given for that we say it as your coordinate covalent bond. But if we are doing covalent bond or ionic bond, a new scenario arises. That is what we say it as your resonance. What is resonance? Resonance is a concept which we say, or you can say that resonance is a method where you are going to describe the delocalized electrons in some molecule where bonding cannot be explicitly expressed by your single Lewis structure. And for molecules and ion, showing resonance, it is not possible to draw a single Lewis structure. You cannot describe a single Lewis structure for a resonance. That is, resonance was, if you studied in detail about resonance, this concept was given by Heisenberg, and he explained the properties of certain molecules. That is, a single Lewis structure, if we try to explain all the properties, you cannot explain all the properties of the molecule. So the molecule should have many structures. If we are not able to explain the entire property of that particular element by a single Lewis structure, that means we should have some alternative to explain its complete properties. And that alternative solution was given by Heisenberg in the term of resonance. And what does resonance say? Resonance is just going to say that it is going to have, if for any particular element we are unable to explain the complete property, we are trying to solve that problem, and we are giving a molecule should have many structures which can explain most of the properties of the molecule. But yes, one structure is not successful enough of explaining all the properties of the molecule. So what happens? The actual structure will be in between all these contributing structures. That can be more than one, or so when I say a particular X element, I'm having three structures. So the three structures, maybe first structure is successful enough in explaining few properties, second in few, and third. So each one is not successful enough of explaining all the properties. Hence, for the element X, the three structures are designed in such a way that it is being successful in explaining few of the properties. So maybe ABC properties are explained by structure 1, CDE properties are explained by structure 2, and so on. That so you can conclude that resonance is actually able to explain the property of one element in different structure format. So when we are saying that this particular X and Y element is forming a formation of your ionic bond, it is capable of forming ionic bond. So what should be the criteria for that to form the ionic bond? These are all the criteria. That is, it should have low ionization energy, high electron affinity, high lattice energy. So these are all the conditions which we require in order to form an ionic bond. And basically there should be same conditions should be favored, or there should be some condition which should favor for formation of your covalent bond. So here are the conditions which is required in order to form a covalent bond. That is, it should be a smaller cation, it should be a larger anion, large charge on either ion, electronic configuration of that cation. So there are certain criteria. If those criteria are satisfied to elements, then they will be capable of forming covalent bond. Or if the criteria is satisfying for the formation of ionic bond, they will be successful enough of forming the ionic bond. And when you are studying about the bond, there are certain conditions which we should study, or you can say the parameters required, or parameters in your bond formation, or we say it as simple bond parameters. So there are few bond parameters which we can discuss it here. First is your bond length. This is nothing but, you could say, the equilibrium distance between the centers of the nuclei of the two bonded atoms. Whichever two atoms we are going to consider for the bond formation, it should be the distance, or we could also say the equilibrium distance between the centers of the nuclei of the two bonded atoms, that we give a name, that is your bond length. Okay? Or we can also conclude that as the average distance between the nuclei of the two bonded atoms, we say it as your bond length. And the next parameter is bond energy. What does the bond energy mean? It is nothing but the amount of energy which we require either to break 1 mole of bond of a particular type, so as to they will be separate them into your gaseous atom. That is, if suppose I say X and Y has founded a bond among each other, so if I require the amount of energy in order to break 1 mole of the bond of any particular type, that can be a covalent bond or your ionic bond, that is not the case here, but we have to separate them into your gaseous atom, and that term, or the bond energy which you are requiring, and the process of separating or the process of breaking the bond, we always learn the concept as your bond dissociation enthalpy. Bond dissociation enthalpy, or some places it is also termed as simply bond enthalpy. So do not confuse. Bond energy is the total amount of energy which we are requiring in order to break the bond between X and Y. And the process of breaking that bond, we call it as the bond dissociation enthalpy. And there are certain criteria also which may affect this bond energy. That can be the size of the atom, it can be the multiplicity of the bond, or it can also depend upon the number of lone pairs of electron. It can also depend upon the number of lone pairs of electron. The next parameter is bond angle. This is nothing but, it's simple, the angle between the lines which is going to represent the direction of the bond. That is the angle between the lines which is going to represent the direction of the bond. So the orbitals which is going to contain the bonding electrons, the orbitals which is going to contain the bonding electrons is going to be called as your bond angle. And there are certain fixed angles which we all know it. And the next one is your bond order. When we talk about bond order, in your Lewis representation of your molecules or ion, the number of bonds which is going to be present between the two atoms, the number of bonds which is going to be present between the two atoms, we call it as a bond order. That is bond order. We all know if it is a single bond, we say it as a bond order to be 1. If it is a double bond, you will say it as your bond order to be 2. If it is a triple bond, and so on. So this is the concept of your bond parameters, where we are learning about 4 parameters, that is your bond length, bond energy, bond angle, and your bond order. And here when we are learning about different bond order or your bond energy, here exists another concept, which one you call it as your metallic bond. What do we call it as your metallic bond? And do learn the order of their repulsion is also important, because it is being asked in the exams. And yes, when we are learning the types of bond we are having between your different orbitals, whether it is going to form pi bond or sigma bond, that is also important. And yes, their energy, which energy will be higher, to focus on it. And when you're learning the bond parameters, it is not important just to know the length, but it is also important that we know the criteria. That is when it is you are moving from left to right in your periodic table, whether bond length increases, whether bond length decreases, that is also important. So if we conclude that bond length increases with the increase in size of the atom, and the length of your double bond will always be less than the length of your single bond if we talk about same two atoms, and your triple bonds are even shorter than the double bond. Hence, when we conclude the decreasing length or decreasing bond length, single bond will be highest, and that is followed with your double and triple bond. And all of us know fluorine is having the highest electronegativity, and larger the value of your resonance, more will be the stability of that particular resonance hybrid. So these are all certain small informations, but its impact is very high. This is an one line information, but its impact is very high, because if we know the points in short, but we will be able to reach the questions faster. Because when you are attempting an exam, knowing the answer alone is not enough, but we have to finish within the given time. So let us come back to the concept of your metallic bonding. Metal atoms which is being held together by metallic bond. So metal atoms, when we are saying it is being held together by a metallic bond. So a metal atom is supposed to consist of two sections, or we can say going to consist of two parts. One part we call it as your valence electron, and the other part is kernel. Kernel is nothing but it is the combination of your remaining part, you can say, apart from your valence electron. Apart from your valence electron, combination term is given as your kernel. That is nothing but it is the, if we say in expanded terms, it is your nucleus and the inner shells. As I repeat, the nucleus and the inner shells put together, the term used is called as kernel. So, or simple you can say, one is your valence electron, and the rest of the part we could say that it is kernel, which is nothing but the nucleus and the inner shells. So the kernel of your metal is going to occupy the lattice sites, while the space between your kernel is going to be occupied by your valence electron. And last, but the important part of this chapter, that is your hydrogen bonding. What is hydrogen bonding? When we talk about hydrogen bonding, hydrogen bond is nothing but it is an electrostatic force, or you can say attractive force, which is existing between your covalently bonded hydrogen atom of a molecule or a part of a molecule. So basically, when I say hydrogen bonding, there exists for the formation of your hydrogen bonding, it is very much compulsory that the molecule should contain an atom of high electronegativity. It should contain an atom of high electronegativity, like you can say fluorine, oxygen, or nitrogen. These are all the elements which will be bonded to hydrogen atom, and the size of that electronegative element which we are going to consider in order to for the formation of your hydrogen bonding, that should be quite small. The size of that electronegative element should be quite small comparatively. And there exist two types of your hydrogen bonding. One is your intermolecular hydrogen bond, and the other one is intramolecular hydrogen bond. So immediately when we say intermolecular, that means it is two different molecules of, it can be of the same substance or a different substance, doesn't matter, but it should exist between two different molecules. And hydrogen bond between the molecules of your hydrogen fluoride, you can consider it as an example. Like hydrogen bond in your alcohol and water molecule, all those are example of your intermolecular hydrogen bonding. And second, when we say intramolecular hydrogen bond is basically formed between the hydrogen atom and your highly electronegative atom, which is, you can say, which is present in the same molecule. So when we are talking about intramolecular, the actual structure, or intramolecular, when we say, it is going to exist between one hydrogen atom and the other one is highly electronegative atom. So hydrogen bonding is important, and the most important concept which you will learn now, but it will be useful everywhere, that is hybridization. Hybridization is nothing but it is just an intermixing of your dissimilar orbitals of the same atom. Dissimilar orbitals of the same atom, we call it as your hybridization. And the concept of hybridization was introduced by Pauling and Slater. Intermixing of dissimilar orbitals of same atom, but slightly, you can say, different energies to form same number of new orbitals of equal energy, but the shape will be identical. So when we talk about the characteristics of your hybridization, what are all important concepts in it? Only orbitals of your similar energy, which is belonging to the same atom, will have the tendency or will have the capacity to undergo hybridization. And do remember, hybridization takes place only in orbitals where electrons are not being involved. And the number of hybrid orbitals produced will be equal to the number of pure orbitals which is being mixed during your hybridization. So these are all the concept of hybridization. But how to simplify this concept, or how to make the work easier in order to solve the question? You have a very simple formula in order to calculate the hybridization, because when they ask you question, they may give you the particular group or the compound, and they may ask you find out the or which hybridization it goes. So do remember a simple formula, that is H is equal to half of your T plus M minus C plus A. What is V? V is nothing but the total number of electrons in that valence shell. C, charge on the cation. A, charge on the anion. And yes, it is, M is nothing but the number of monovalent atom. It is the number of monovalent atoms. So when a compound or a compound is given in front of you, you have to find out the total number of valence electron, monovalent atoms in it, charge on your cation and charge on the anion. And if you substitute here, you will reach to find a positive value, integer value H. So how will I predict what type of hybridization that particular compound or the complex is undergoing? So if you are getting the value of H to be equal to 2, it should be sp hybridization. If you get the value of 3 for your H, sp2, 4, sp3, and so on. So do remember this portion. Otherwise, solving the value or finding the value of H will make no sense if you are not knowing this, because based on this only you will be able to choose the type of hybridization. So this is what is the concept of our chapter, chemical bonding, and let us do a test which is based on these concepts. So if I go to the chapter of chemistry, let us take questions from chemical bonding and molecular structure. Okay. So here the question says is, according to the theory, which of the following is non-linear molecule? Which of the following is non-linear molecule? So when we are learning the theory, it is very important that we are able to draw the shapes of it. So when we draw the shape for each given option, like for example, if you are saying carbon dioxide, its shape will be like this, and so on for your other options. So when you draw the option, the question says which of the following is non-linear. Among the given option, the only structure ClF2, you will find that it is not straight or non-linear. So that should be the right answer. Save and let us go to next. The number of pi bonds in ethane, ethene, and ethyne. The number of, in ethane, when we do the bonding or when you are doing the structure of your ethane, ethene, and ethyne, you could conclude that your ethane, they will have, they do not have any formation of your pi bond, but ethene, there will be one pi bond. And when we are talking about ethyne, there are two pi bond. This you could conclude in a very simple way that when I say ethane, it is single bond as we discussed, your ethene double bond, and your ethyne triple bond. Ethane single bond, ethyne triple bond, sorry, ethene double bond, and your ethyne triple bond. Hence, very easily we could conclude the total number of pi bonds. It should be 0, 1, and 2. Let us save that answer and go to next. In most stable structure of your ClF3 molecule, how many lone pairs are there in equatorial position? How many lone pairs are there in equatorial position? If you draw the structure, you can conclude that there will be actually two pairs are there in equatorial position for the stable structure of your Cl F3 because your lone pairs are at equatorial position. That means, as I showed you a comparison in our revision notes, that here this is important. That is your order of repulsion. How do you compare among each other? So when you compare that, you will come to a conclusion that here it will have two lone pairs in its equatorial position. Let us save that and go to next. Next is in C2H5OH, which type of hydrogen bond can be observed? In C2H5OH, which type of hydrogen bond can be observed? Just now we discussed intermolecular and intramolecular. So immediately it should strike that intermolecular bonding means secondary type of bonding. That is, your hydrogen bond can be dipole-dipole interaction, London dispersion forces. So because of the presence of your hydroxyl group, that is your OH group, you could say that this will be an intermolecular force between the ethanol in your ethanol. So it should be intermolecular hydrogen bond. Hence our option B should be the right option. We have mentioned here in revision notes regarding your hydrogen bond. Hence, it would be helpful for you to conclude about the intramolecular and your intermolecular hydrogen bonding. So we have saved. And the next question is, in which physical state of compound the magnitude of hydrogen bonding is very high? In which state the magnitude of hydrogen bonding is very high? It's a very known fact that hydrogen bonding will totally depend upon the state of the compound. It totally depends upon the state of the compound, and it will be maximum. It's obvious that it will be maximum in solid state compared to other state. And obviously, we could even conclude that if the same question would have been asked for your minimum, then immediately it will be your gaseous state. But since here it is maximum, let us talk about, say that solid state should be the right answer. So the hybridization and the shape. Just now we discussed about the formula of your hybridization. The given complex, calculate the number of your valence electron, your monovalent, your cations and your anions. If you substitute in that formula, you can conclude that it should be the TsP2. The hybridization will be TsP2 and the shape will be, the shape when it is TsP2, your shape is square planar. So if you come across studying hybridization, do focus for certain type of hybridization, the shape will be fixed. So that is also important. Hence, when you calculate based on that formula, the answer will be DsP2 hybridization and the shape is square planar. Next is the number of electrons in sigma 2p orbital in your N2 plus. So when we are talking about the molecular orbital configuration, it's obvious that when you are doing an orbital configuration, you could conclude that the number of electrons which will be present, if we do an electronic configuration, it should be like this. It should be for sigma 2s, it is 2 electrons. Sigma 2s star, it will be 2 pi 2p4 and sigma 2p1. So the number of electrons they have asked in sigma 2p. That means it should be sigma 2p means it should be 1 as far as our electronic configuration is concerned. Hence, your answer should be option B. Let us save that. And next is molecular orbital theory predicts F22 plus ion has a bond order. How do we calculate that? In your, we can calculate the bond order. Molecular orbital theory, when we are studying bond order, that two electrons in your bonding orbital will constitute one net bond, and that means we have to talk about your anti-bonding and bonding. So if you calculate the bond order, the formula used for it is half of your summation of your bonding minus your summation of your anti-bonding. So if you calculate that for your F2, you say that there are in total 8 bonding electrons and 4 anti-bonding. Hence, we could conclude that the answer should be 2. We have that option? Yes, it is D. So, let us save that and go to next. Which of the following molecule exhibit the largest bond angle? Largest bond angle. So, when we are talking about the bond angle, we have discussed the concept of your bond angle. So the bond angle in our BF3, bond angle of your BF3, it should be 120 degree. Your second option is BEF2. BEF2 will have a bond angle of 180 degree. Your H2O, it is a well-known one, 104.45. And the last option is about CHCl3. The bond angle of your CHCl3, that should be around 109.5 degree. So among all this option, we could say that the bond angle in BEF2 is largest because they have asked us for the largest bond angle. So the option should be B. Let us save that. Next question is, in alene hybridization of central atom and terminal carbons respectively are. The very first thing or the very first question which arises in our mind is, what is alene? If we know alene, then only we should be able to say the answer. So when we talk about alene, do remember alene is actually a compound in which one carbon atom has double bond with each of its two adjacent carbon atom. If I draw the structure, it will be clear. It should be like this. This is a structure of an organic compound, propadiene, and the concept says is it is an organic compound in which one carbon atom has double bond with each of its two carbon centers. This is the concept of alene, or what is alene. And when we talk about the hybridization of central atom and the terminal carbon, central atom and the terminal carbon, because they have asked about the hybridization, as usual, calculate your H value and you can find out the answer should be sp and sp2 hybridization. Do calculate your H based on the formula, you will reach the answer. The number of anti-bonding electrons in CO, the number of anti-bonding electrons in CO, they are asking about carbon. So according to the theory, the number of anti-bonding electrons should be how much? So based on the theory, when we try to analyze the anti-bonding electrons, carbon, what should be the electronic configuration? Carbon, it will be 1s2, 2s2, 2p2. So we could conclude that because your P should accommodate, or P has the capacity of accommodating 6 electrons, and oxygen, if you do, it is 1s2, 2s2, 2p4, sorry, 2p4. So bonding and anti-bonding, if we are saying the bonding here for 1s2, 2s2, 2, anti-bonding again 2, for your 2s2 it will be 2, and for 1s2 it is 2, so we could say that it is 2 plus 2, 4. Because for bonding, if we calculate, it should be for 1s2, 1s2, 2, for 2s2, 2s2, another 2, and for 2p2 and your 2p4. That means you will get it for your another 2, hence we could say that it should be 6 plus 2 plus 2, that is 6 plus 2, 8, 8 plus 2, 10 electrons. This is for your bonding. This is bonding. Anti-bonding, here these two are not able to form, hence you could conclude that we are having only 4 anti-bonding. Let us see, it is there in the option. Yes, option C will be the right one. And BrO3 is isostructural with your noble gas species. Isostructural with your noble gas species. So this is simple. We just need to calculate the, or we have to find out what is the structure of BrO3 minus. So it is basically trigonal bipyramidal in shape, and from the given option, if we find the structure, the same structure you will find out for your ZeO3, that is also trigonal bipyramidal, because both will undergo sp3 hybridization. Hence our option should be XeO3. In which case electron from bonding molecular orbital is removed. In which case electron from bonding orbital is being removed. That is, so if we are doing an electronic configuration of O2, O2 plus, N2, N2 plus, NO, and the given option, when we are doing an electronic configuration, you will find out that in your N2 to N2 plus, that is, if we talk about the electronic configuration of N2, it should be sigma 1 S2, that is for, sorry, 1s2, sigma star 1s2, 2s2, 2p. So in the same way, if you calculate for, or if we write the electronic configuration for N plus, sorry, N2 plus, we could conclude that the bonding molecular orbital will be removed from the N2 to N2 plus formation. Bonding orbital is being removed in N2 to N2 plus configuration. When you are writing the configuration of each, that is when O2 gets converted to O2 plus, so what is the electronic configuration of O2, what is the electronic configuration of O2 plus. In the similar way, when we write the electronic configuration of each option being converted, you will come to know that N2 to N2 plus, the electron, that is your bonding orbital, is actually being removed. Next, we have to calculate the bond order of He2 4 minus. So simple formula for your bond order, we should apply that we have discussed it. So when we say electronic configuration, find out the electronic configuration of your He2 2 plus, and find out your bonding electrons and the, yes, of course, your anti-bonding electrons. And when we find out the bonding and anti-bonding electrons from your electronic configuration, the bond order formula says that it should be your bonding minus your anti-bonding. Bond order is, we have the formula mentioned in the revision notes. So here you will have bonding electrons will be 2 and your Anti-bonding electrons is 0. So 2 minus 0 divided by 2. Answer should be 1. Which of the following oxide is expected to exhibit paramagnetic behavior? When we talk about paramagnetic behavior, simple term is, do remember when we are doing an electronic configuration, it is simple logic, or you can say a simple trick to find out the paramagnetic behavior. When we are doing an electronic configuration for the given option, you find out the total number of valence electron. When we find out the valence electron in the given option, when we are finding out the valence electron in the given option, do remember, if your valence electron is an odd number, then it will be paramagnetic. It will exhibit paramagnetic behavior. If your valence electron is even, if your valence electron in that particular given option, if it is even, then that will be diamagnetic. Now your work becomes very easy, that we have to just find out the total number of valence electron in carbon dioxide. So it is basically 4 for your carbon plus 6 into 6 for your oxygen, here 2. So 6 2s are 12, 12 plus 4, 16. So from the given logic, it should be diamagnetic. If I talk about SO2, it is simple. 6 plus 6 into 2, it is 18. Once again, it is even, so it will be diamagnetic. Next option, ClO2. Yes, of course, chlorine is 7 and plus 6 into 2. So this should give you 6 plus 2, 6 into 2, 12, 12 plus 7, 19. And then last option, SiO2, it is 4 plus 6 into 2. So again, it will be 16. Hence, from the given option and the logic, it says that ClO2 should be paramagnetic. Hence, our option should be C. Let us check. Since we have completed all the question, let us give end test. The page says that wantedly I have done question number 14 to be wrong. Since last class all the question was correct, since then, because of which I was unable to show that if we go and answer to be wrong, how it is indicated, it will be indicated as red. If you visit that particular question number, that will give you an explanation and the answer. It will be helpful for you to find out what was the mistake done by us. So this is the end of the session, your chemical bonding and molecular structure. We'll catch you up tomorrow with a new chapter. Swapna.